Okay, so kind of continuing along a line of discussion around the response you got from the manager at the Greyhound station. I mean, there seems to be still very much a part of the dominant culture of this, almost a sort of a patronizing attitude that folks who don't have what might be identified as a form of disability have towards people in the disability community. You know, that maybe some people would refer to it as a form of ableism, or as you say, institutionalized bias and so forth. And I'm just wondering, you know, over the last several decades that you've been involved in this kind of work, you know, what kind of change, if any, have you seen around that, or do you still feel like it's still a huge issue in this culture?
Well, that's a great question, Jeff. Um, uh, you know, there are a few times when you realize how many people really are in the country. I mean, like I don't know, like you go to a huge concert and it's packed, and then and you look outside and you realize, well, there's still just as many people out in the streets as there was. I mean, where are all these people? I mean, how can there be so many people? So it is so hard to make a dent in public perception because there's, you know, it's huge. There seems to be billions of people um, in the country here. Let's see. I can say this. I'll say this. From the perspective of since the Americans with Disabilities Act was um, enacted, since the time that the Americans with Disabilities Act was enacted, I feel that, for instance, if you're at a door, fewer people will just come over and grab the door for you. Most people will now recognize, well, that's kind of a crappy way to do it. Let me ask if they need some help. So usually most people will do that. I don't know. It seems like they'll ask if, hey, can I get that for you? You know, and they'll actually try to be helpful in a helpful way. A friend of mine, it's a funny story. A friend of mine who's since passed away. He was at the racetrack in Detroit, and he every time he'd come home, he'd tell me about his good or bad luck or whatever, and it was usually about the tracks. But this time it was a funnier thing. He was like he was done. He'd lost his money or whatever, and he was getting back in his car, and he was a big paraplegic. He had his upper body. He was a tall guy. He must have been like 6'6" or something, 6'5". And so he had like an old beat up manual wheelchair, and he would he'd swing his feet in first, and then he'd grab this board and he'd slide his butt across from this wheelchair into the front seat, and then he'd have to sit. He'd turn all the way around so his feet are outside. Outside the car to fold his wheelchair up, and then he'd put that. Then he had to lean his seat forward, so he's squished between his seat and his steering wheel, and he's trying to slide the wheelchair in between him or whatever, right? Between the seat to get it in the back seat. And this guy comes along, and he's like, hey, hold on, let me get that for you. And he goes and he grabs the chair and he pulls it out and he gets it all unfolded and everything. And he goes, oh, there you go, have a great day. And he was like, I was getting in the car. That's funny. but anyway, on institutional bias and the things that really matter, it is really difficult to see progress